live now. Preparing. Okay. I think it should just about be live. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, hi everyone, and welcome back to another discussion with the awesome Jochen Schleese. We're discussing bridles today. And I'm pretty excited about that because we haven't had a bridle discussion yet. It's mostly been saddles. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say because I know we have limited time. So let's just jump right in.
Hey, Shelby, great to be back with you. And yeah, as I was saying, I had everything nicely prepared with my bridles and my bits, and I left it in the other car. But let's see how this goes today. And if we don't have enough information or we didn't get really the point across, we definitely be able to maybe do part 2 or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That would be fun.
So I like to start off with my favorite little friend, this little horse here. Mm-hmm. And this little horse I've shown many times, and this is the bladder meridian point. It has a lot of points what act certain reflex points. In the saddle fit, it's right here. Now, if we focus today on bridles, look how many points there are on the face. Right, so obviously, these are points of concerns, and we need to think about when we put a head stall on it, anything from a double bridle to a snaffle to a halter, most of them, they lie in between these 2 points. Mm-hmm. And you see there, some are very, very close to the face. Okay, so then when we look at the muscle structure, I have another picture I'll show you in a minute, where certain muscles attach in strains, obviously the eye. So we want to make sure we can control the horse with the bridle, but don't cause unnecessary destruction to the horse. In other words, the horse shakes the head all the time. Oh yeah, he's a shack haker. Or the horse has really, really hard time to go through the pole, And as I said so many times, we have 5 senses. The horse has 6 senses. Okay, so if we close one of our senses, the eyes, and we were standing, let's back up a little bit. Let's say we were standing with 2 feet apart, upright, and now somebody says, lift up one leg. You lift up one leg and you stand on one leg. And then they say, close your eye. And when you close your eye, you get rid of one of your senses, you start wiggling because you use your eyes to look at the horizon and balance yourself. The second they say, clench your teeth and bite as hard as you can, get really tight on your TMJs, you're not able to stand on one leg. So what has that to do with bridle fitting? Well, let's back up a little bit. We just talked about the reflex points on the head. And on a snaffle or double bridle, there is a throat latch. Most of the double bridles or snaffle have a throat latch. And the majority of the people do not know how to attach a throat latch. Now there's new bridles where the throat latch is super tight. Mm-hmm. And it's attached so that the cheek piece does not slip forward into the horse's, well, we think it's the eye, but into these reflex points. Mm-hmm. So the throat latch is really tight. But in the most common throat latch, they hang very loose here. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the traditional snaffles and the throat latch is there, the old thumb rule was it should be a hand width between the throat and the strap. But nobody told you why. So what I want you to do, Shelby, is I want you to go to your jaw and feel this hook here. There's sort of a hook there.
Yeah.
Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea here is, and you can feel the same thing on the horse's jaw, when you feel him right there, right? So there you can feel that hook, what you have just felt. The idea is that the strap hangs loose and falls behind the hook. Because why do we have a throat latch? The idea of a throat latch is when you fall down, you rub with your hands the bridle, you're not pulling the headgear off, right? That's sort of the idea of a throat latch. So then you wonder how come that the Western bridles never had a throat latch?
Oh yeah.
Right. And the other thing, Spanish riding schools since 400 years never have the throat latch.
Really? I didn't notice that. Wow.
Right? So do you really think all Western riders can ride better than every English rider? Or all Spanish riders, they never fall off? So what's the purpose of the throat latch? And the purpose of the throat latch is when it hangs loose, it hangs itself. Can you see that?
Yeah.
There's that hook what I was just talking about. Okay. So when it's loose enough, it needs to fall behind it. So I always say, make the throat latch so it sits tight from here to here. So there's no movement. If you make it looser, it swings back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And if it starts swinging back and forth, it hits this gland. Okay, so this gland here, okay, that is something like we have it here. Okay, so if it constantly touches, that throat latch, it's always touching. Okay, the horse will not go through the paw. It's very highly irritating. Think about it. You got the strap what keeps bugging you here on that gland. Okay, not very happy the horse. So okay, so if we make it too loose, it just swings back and forth. If we don't make it long enough so it can get underneath this hook, it's useless. So as a bridle maker, when I look at the Spanish riding school or the Western bridles, I go, why do I even have a throat latch?
Mm-hmm.
Right? For the Cabesson, for example. A Cabesson has the same throat latch what the new Micklem bridles have. Okay, that Micklem bridle is designed so the throat latch is tight around the jaw to this cheek piece, so it never hits and it never even come close to all these points which we pointed out earlier here, which are not to be disturbed. Okay, so now we know the part of the throat latch. My recommendation, make sure it sits below it and then tighten it and it doesn't move. Perfect. It should not swing. It makes a massive difference. Just try it. Have you ever heard about this?
No, like I never, like, yeah, like I definitely would have just done whatever on my horse as a kid too and not thought about it because I don't think it was ever clarified like, oh, we fit it like this because of this. It's just like the way it is type deal where, yeah, I like for a lot of things, saddle fit included. It's just like never was taught growing up at all.
So we understand what you have to do, the hand width. But I always say the people who know the how will always follow the people who know the why. So now that your listeners know, that's why it has to be hand width. They pay more attention now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Rather than say, I heard it one, but I don't care. I just put the buckle up there. Of course you care. But if you don't know why you don't or do care, you forget.
Yeah.
Right? Life is busy these days. So that was the part of the throat latch. Now let's come to the brawband. Okay, so the first brawbands I saw, what came down on the front like a V, I saw them in Australia. And I says, oh, that's kind of interesting. Most brawbands are too tight.
Mm-hmm.
They put too much from the headrest, too much pressure behind that ear. That's where that same gland is I showed you earlier, just to show you that again. That gland goes all the way up there around the ear. So if the brawband is too tight, okay, then you have really big problems. You say, oh, my horse gets through it. But again, do you ever see a brawband on a Western bridle? No.
Yeah, like they're like
They
the
may have
one.
a one ear thing,
Yeah.
right? But that's about it. But they don't have a strap what pulls that headband against the ear. Just carefully feel around the ear, feel around the cartilage, how wide that cartilage goes back. So my recommendation, rather than saying 2 fingers in between, it should be lots of room. Okay? If you have not 2 fat man sausage finger and you just have little girls elegant narrow fingers, then take 4 of your fingers. That's probably the same equivalent like a man back then when they made these rules, right? So my comment from bridle fitting, make sure it's nice and big. So what, it hangs down a little bit. They even make bra bands what hang down now, just to make sure it's not tight. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. And then I guess my question would be like for people who like, I'm lucky that I have mostly thoroughbreds. So like when I get their size bridle, usually the brow band fits them. But for people who have horses that have wider heads, but they might have like a shorter head and a rest of the narrow face, would you then like suggest like, yeah, like basically, I guess making like a Franken bridle if they had like, depending on the budget they're working with to like get a different brow band? Because I think that's where some people run into trouble. And then they also don't necessarily know how important it is for that part of the bridle to fit well.
That was so well said. 100%. Because one of our talks previously, we talked about what changed over the last 50 years. And one of the main factors is that we now have a lot of crossbreeds. Like you just said, I mainly have thoroughbreds. But we have now Arabs with breeds with Frisians. We have all different type of horses head where they have massive jaw, very short, big broad head. So, and I remember when I started making bridle back for over 40 years ago, they were small, medium, large,
Yeah.
cob, full, or what would you say, warm blood size. But now 6 or 7 out of 10 horses have a mixed head. Like you put a lot of Arabian in it, you have a tiny noseband of a cob, but they got this long head of a warm blood. So when I used to make custom bridles, I don't make it anymore because it takes too much time and they're so expensive. Okay, so what do people do? When people make bridles, no, it doesn't matter where they're made, they make them in bulk. Okay, because I can make the same time if I make 3 bridles or I make 8 bridles. Right? So the time is obviously saved if you make more at once. So now when Schleese sells bridles where every piece is interchangeable, every piece. Yes, we set them up at warm blood, full size cob, but as I said, 7 out of 10, we switch the brow band or the cheek piece. Okay? Super, super important. Speaking of the cheek piece, the buckle of the cheek piece needs to be in the, what we call it, the, there's a spot behind the eye where the buckle needs the buckle field. And what you see here is the nerve. You see the nerve? Okay, and there's another nerve. So you don't want it in the eye. You need it just, there's another bone. Let me see if I have a better picture there.
I have a skull if you want me to take his
Yeah,
bridle off.
I see it. So maybe you can show me on the skull. You see there is a bone. Whoopsie. Yeah. You see there is a bone there.
Yeah.
And then the eye. And there's
Oh yeah, I'll grab him. 1 second.
Yes. I keep looking at it.
Okay, here we go.
That's awesome. So what I want you to do is go to this part of the horse. There's that one where your ring finger is. Feel that bone where your ring finger is?
Oh yeah, right here.
So from there to the eye socket. Okay, so that area is where the cheek beak buckle needs to sit. It cannot go lower and it cannot go above that bone you just touched. And on the horse, it's kind of like a flat area. It looks like a little mini field. Okay, and it bypasses all the nerves. So sometimes I see cheek piece buckles because they have a small head and they have a full-size cheek piece. It goes all the way on top of it, close to the gland, and sits on top of the bone. And sometimes they have a cheek piece where it's very too small and it's come very close to the eye. So in that spot is where that cheek piece want to sit. So while you have that skull right there, I want you to point out the tip of the nose. See how thin that bone gets there?
Yeah.
So many people do not know how dangerous is a too loose noseband and a too tight noseband, and where the noseband should finish. Okay, so can you identify this bone, the jawbone on the side?
Yeah, like over here.
You go a little bit further back because we can't see it on the camera.
Sorry, there we go.
Yeah. So the cheekbone, can you point it out?
Right. Oh my gosh, right there.
Right there. That's it. So your noseband should be 1.5 centimeter. That's a half an inch below that bone. Your noseband cannot be lower than that on a double bridle. On a snaffle, 2 centimeter and not lower. So what I want you to do is take 2 of your fingers and lay it below the jawbone, that edge there. Excellent. So now if I would have another finger and would go straight to the middle of the nose, you can see you're far, far away from the narrow tip of the nose.
Yeah, and this is the nerve hole.
That's right, where it comes out, right? So that's why you need to be at least 1.5 centimeter or 2 centimeter below that, right?
Cool.
So what happens if the noseband is too loose? It slides
flops down. Yeah.
It flops and it comes down. But what's way, way worse is if you ever had metal and it keeps hitting you on the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like that? How would you say? Okay, the noseband's job is to keep the loose ring snaffle, here's the word, loose ring, right? Or any kind of a bit, quiet in his mouth. Now, if I'd make it too tight, there's enough articles written about it, but nobody tells people what actually happened when it's too loose. Now show us, go a little bit further back and show us the cone shape of the head. So we can see how it gets narrower towards the bottom. Right? It's really wide on the top where the cheekbone is, and then it goes up. Yeah. You see that, Shelby, how it goes narrow towards the bottom? So obviously, if you make it too narrow, too tight, the noseband just goes, it runs down, and it puts a lot of push here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why is that so important, in your opinion, that the noseband should be not too loose? Let's put it down for a second. Yeah. Why do you think it's really bad to ride without noseband and bad to ride with a loose noseband?
I like for hitting it in the jaw, I would guess that, but I didn't really think about anything from bit stability standpoint.
Okay. So now think about Western again. Okay. Mm-hmm. How many Western horses do you know who ride with a loose ring snaffle bit?
Yeah, basically no one.
Right. They have these long shank. Okay. And then with that chain behind, or hackamore, that's where they get their control. All right. So if we ride with the loose ring snaffle and we ride without a noseband, here's what's happening. Here you see a cross section of the tongue, of the mouth. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what these two thingies are here?
The bars.
It's the bars of the bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then below the tongue, it looks like tear ducts. You see those? Tear
things?
Do you know what that is?
There's still there's saliva glands, or that's what I.
Hit the nail on the head. They're glands. Okay. So now what I want you to do is put 3 fingers up like that. Okay. So a tongue width, right, is approximately 3 to 4 finger wide.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look next time in your horse, check how wide it is. So put 3 fingers like that, like I have. And then with the other hand, make 2 fingers like this and place them underneath the index finger and the ring finger. You see how I didn't go like that? So now your 3 fingers is the tongue. And the fingers are the gland. Without the noseband, or with noseband too loose, and you're riding in a loose ring snaffle, what do you think your bit will do? It would put excessive pressure on those glands. And you wonder, oh, I wonder why I can't keep my contact. I wonder why it's either heavy pulling or not steady on my hand. And isn't contact one of the most important things? And when I say contact, I'm not talking about contact where I pull the horse's face to his chest. It's proper connection from elbow to wrist to mouth, one line where I have a positive tension. It starts from the hind leg all the way through the bit. So if the bit flaps around, high, lows, moves around, and you wonder why your horse is angry with you, it hurts. So I know most people mean very, very well when we talk about, I ride with a loose noseband. But we need to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of the noseband? Why do I even make stuff like this? To keep the loose ring snaffle or the Eckbert snaffle, most snaffles, quiet. If I have a bit what has the chain underneath, different story. Okay, keeps it quiet. But if I don't have that, the horse you will have a hell of a time to have a nice connection on your bit. So what you have is twice as much hand. So if I'm going to show you a screen, I mean, who am I to say something like this? I mean, they've done that in France. You know, they started with the rein tension device.
Oh yeah, I've seen this study.
So it's amazing. They can't keep an even tension, but just get rid of the noseband or the flash. The flash keeps the bit quiet. If you have a double bridle, the bit is held quiet with the curb chain. Okay, and the Bridle sits on top of the bit. Without flash, that thing bounces all over. And uneven study. So while we have these pictures, I also want you to pay attention where this noseband ends. Okay, this goes all the way around. Okay, and ends on one side. This side is what we call the open side of the noseband. Can you see that, Shelby?
Yeah.
So if I'm using my arm and my hand here and I squish it, where my thumb and my middle finger don't touch, there's an open spot. And when I tighten this noseband, I can easily roll that skin over his face. So needless to say, that's kind of not good. So the good nosebands have attachments, have opening on both sides, because on the left, I don't want him to tilt his head left and move his jaw over here and break to the right shoulder. Okay, I want an even contact. So what does the bridle industry done? Just put a chin guard here and has both sides. So it runs through 3 pulleys. So what you have now, the horse can chew. It can move left and right, left and right, left and right. Of course, people look at this noseband and says, oh my God, a crank noseband. These are the worst in the world because the poor horse will die.
Oh, in the Arab circuit, yes. You should have seen how tightly they cranked those bad boys.
So I said it earlier and I say it again, I'm not a fan with that at all.
Yeah.
So too tight is just as bad as too wide. Okay. So I'm talking about a noseband, what has the ability to move both sides.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Right. It is absolutely horrible when it's too tight.
Oh, yeah.
But it's nice to see when we talk about bridle fitting, if it's a throat latch, where the cheekpiece buckle needs to be, where the brow band is, where the noseband needs to be, and the reason of a flash. I think people start to think different, and it doesn't matter what bridle they think, they're going to just try it.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that explained. I always wondered why they put curb straps on the racehorses' snaffles. So this answers my question because they don't use nosebands. So
there you go. Keeps the bit quiet.
Yeah.
Right. So it's painful on their teeth, and never mind the glands. So that's my cue.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on again. We really appreciate it. And we always learn something.
I know it was a little aggressive today, but I'm trying to make this. I could really kick myself without having the bridle and the bits in my hand.
Yeah.
But
oh, no worries.
I think we got the main points covered. And as usual, I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, and you were having a bridal giveaway. I just to plug that quickly to anyone that's watching this, I'm going to be posting it about it on TikTok and Instagram as well. So you can check it out, and also on the Schleese pages.
Yay, Shelby. Thank you for doing this. This is supposed to be my job.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.